Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. Happy to be here with you live all across the country. If you want to join us, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And it's a tale of two presidents. You've probably been hearing this all day, and I think it bears repeating because I always tend to look at things through my own biased political eyes, but then I also look at things through the eyes of your average Joe, right? Somebody who's working for a living that doesn't care about politics, that says, you know what, it's either crook A or crook B. It doesn't make a difference to me if it's the red team or the blue team. Neither one of them is helping me pay my bills, right? The regular people, the third of this country that doesn't give a darn about politics. And I don't know how I'm able to do that, given all the strong opinions I have, but I do. I do it all the time. And I got to say, when you look at a story like this one, where you have four current living presidents, all in New York City today, three of them going to a fundraiser with the the singer Lizzo, and rappers and celebrities and others that are scheduled to attend this fundraiser for Joe El Baboso Biden. And then you have President Trump, who's in town just to go to the wake of a police officer that was murdered. It's a classy thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the presidential thing to do. And I find it very uncouth for these other guys to just kind of ignore this. I mean, I'm sure they're all at this point saying, "Oh, it looked like we're kissing up." So at this point, we just kind of let the weather the storm and wait. But it's a bad look. Anyway, there's a clip of audio I want you to hear. Check this out.
They're not given the respect. The police are the greatest people we have. There's nothing and there's nobody like them, and this should never happen. I just visited with a very beautiful wife that now doesn't have her husband. Stephanie was just incredible. Their child, brand new, beautiful baby, sitting there innocent as can be, and doesn't know how his life has been changed. But the Diller family you'll never be the same. You can never be the same. And we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently because this is not working. This is happening too often.
Well, he's right. He's 100% right. And I think it's so important that we pay attention to this. This is really Trump at his best, right? While all this stuff is happening, Trump is making moves behind the scenes, working with Tunnel to Towers, making sure that mortgages are paid off. This cop is, as I understand it, his widow, their home is paid off now due to this charity. He's on deck for the wake. The current president, Joe Biden, nowhere to be found. Right? Nowhere to be found except glad handing and doing what he, I would say what he does best, but I don't even think he does that well. But Barack Obama certainly doing what he does best. Bill Clinton certainly doing what he does best. And I just got to say, this is truly disappointing, right? I look at this as an American, outside of any of my political commentary or my disdain for Joe Biden. All three of them, I think, you know what? What would have, you think they would have been disinvited? Maybe they might have, but I don't think so. I think you pull up with your presidential limo, Joe Biden and the rest of your gang with the other three presidents, and you say, Maybe he didn't invite us, but we want to show our respect and pay our respects to the family. And you try. It doesn't seem like anybody tried. I doubt the widow or the family would have said, you know what, you people suck, you're ruining America, I hate your guts, at least not to their face. They likely would have said, you know what, thanks for coming. The widow would have said, my late husband is a hero, thank you. It's an honor that former President Trump came and now current President Biden, 2 former presidents. Imagine if they all would have showed up. The impact that would have made. Now, I know there's some of you out there saying, oh, come on, Rich. Presidents don't always go visiting, the wakes of slain police officers. You're right. They don't. And would Trump have done that if it wasn't campaign time? Maybe, maybe not. But he did. He did, and these guys let it happen. And they took it lying down, right? That's literally what they did. They said, all right, don't worry. We're going to keep doing our thing here. We're going to raise all this money. We're going to laugh our way to the bank. Meanwhile, Trump's there commiserating with people. I'm shaking my head in silence, honestly. Very disappointed. And I'm often disappointed in the politics, but this is more than politics, right? This is humanity. It's a horrible thing. This is like the Abbey Gate, and another just crisis of humanity from Joe Biden. It's just the wrong thing to do. And people will remember this. Americans have short memories. They do. But not all of them. Ultimately, I think this one goes down in the books as one of those nails in the coffin of Joe Biden's potential for future presidency. I don't see how he can continue to make these types of moves and succeed. I just don't see it. So good on Trump for showing up, and shame on all the rest of them for not showing up. Look at this. I'm looking at Trump in a room in looks like the vestibule, the lobby of this where they had the wake. Everybody's smiling. Everybody trying to get a picture with the former president, the 45th president of the United States. Just imagine if these other clowns would have showed up. I can't imagine they would have been disrespected. These look like honorable people that would have said, you know what, look, we may not like these guys. Maybe they don't like Trump. And that's my point here. That's really the point I'm making. I don't think everybody in that room loves Trump. Maybe they do, and good on them if they do. But I think they all respected him for showing up for their loved one. And that's something you just can't fake. And that's an opportunity that Obama and Biden and Clinton, they all missed it. Anyway, on a brighter note, there was a glimmer of hope coming out of the courts today saying that, no, you can't use undated ballots that came in the mail. If they come in the mail and they have no date on them, you can't use them. This is a big departure from 2020 for everybody that said, oh, they're going to steal the election. They're going to do. Listen, step by step, we're going in the right direction, in my opinion. But we're going to get some legal analysis on that from one of our buddies from Newsweek. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation, amigos, and I want to switch gears and discuss this ruling that came from the court, and it's with respect to ballots. And this is obviously a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. It's a bone of contention for many people saying, oh, we can't have elections if they're rigged. And, well, we're working on unrigging them a little bit. I saw this today, and I thought this was really big news. Listen to this headline. And, forgive it for being from NPR, but it was, one of the first ones I grabbed. An appeals court says undated Pennsylvania ballots don't count. That's right. So if you have a mail-in ballot with no date, you can't use it. At least on its face, that's what this ruling looks like it says. But there's more to it, and I want to get to that with the senior editor-at-large of Newsweek, Josh Hammer. He's the host of America on Trial on First TV and the host of the Josh Hammer Show, which is a podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that. Josh Hammer, welcome, sir.
Rich, how you doing, sir? Thanks for having me.
Doing great, brother. Thanks for joining us. So let me get your initial reaction to this decision that came out today. Does this pave the way to make this to the Supreme Court? Does it end here? What say you?
Well, it definitely could eventually make its way to the Supreme Court. I mean, so the basic way that it works when you get decisions like this and when you decide whether or not the Supreme Court's going to get it, first of all, I guess I'll zoom out a little bit. So you have one guaranteed right of appeal in federal court, and this was the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. I clerked 6 years ago myself on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they basically just assign the numbers based on geography. So the Third Circuit is Pennsylvania and Delaware around there. The Fifth Circuit, what I did was down in Texas and Louisiana. And typically the easiest way to get fast tracks to the Supreme Court is when you have what lawyers refer to as a circuit split. So when you have identical or at least very similar legal questions that arise in the different circuits across the country, and the three-judge panels in the various circuits have ruled differently. And typically in that situation, the Supreme Court is going to want to grant a writ of cert to hear the case and then decide once and for all who got it right and what we're going to do moving forward, just for the sake of unanimity. Now, right now, it's not obvious to me that there is a circuit split, but here's the key point here. I think this is the kind of litigation that is going to really start proliferating over the next few months. And it's also exactly the kind of case that I could easily see the Supreme Court expediting under its so-called rocket docket. It's kind of emergency docket where they fast-track appeals. And I think it's possible that we could hear a ruling on this before November. But I think just focusing on the case at hand right now, Rich, it's obviously a good ruling. And it's obviously a heartwarming ruling. By the way, this is not exactly a hard right panel of judges. In fact, in the panel's majority was a liberal or a center-left judge named Judge Ambrose, who is a moderate liberal, but he's a liberal nonetheless. So this was a fairly nonpartisan ruling, and it's definitely good news, that's for sure.
Josh Hammer, I want to get your take on this with respect to that particular point. I feel like right following 2020, there were cases that were brought, and I'd spoken with probably a dozen of these attorneys back then that brought these cases, which eventually were turned down, and not this particular case, but on many counts, this one being one of them. And they said, no, latches, you didn't do it in time, this and that. And then things died down. All sorts of things happened in between. And then a month or three later, they brought these cases again, and without the possibility of Trump actually winning. And all of a sudden, they started hearing some of these cases, and they were actually taking them. Do you think that's because it was purely a political issue? Was there a legal basis to this? Or was there a kind of like a shame that went with folks in your profession that said, we really can't, we have to do what's right. Like you just said, you've got a center-left judge, but the law is the law.
Rich, like you, I was also sounding the alarm on a lot of this stuff in the months leading up to the 2020 election. So, my title, as you noted at the outset, currently at Newsweek is senior editor at large. But prior to that, my first 3 years in Newsweek, I was the opinion editor. I was the head of op-ed. And, I do my own writing. I do my own podcasting and shows now on radio. So I branch out. But I was also managing the op-ed desk day in and day out. And I remember about a month after I started during COVID. It was June 2020. At that time, I was responsible for commissioning a debate of the week on kind of a big topic of the day. And we had a debate in June 2020, June, not September, October, June, on the suitability and the constitutionality of mass mail-in voting. And the conservative side, the side of the debate that was more skeptical of it, was written by a great Heritage Foundation fellow by the name of Hans von Spakovsky, who has been
a regular
doing Heritage for 20-plus years now. I mean, he is the guy when it comes to voting rights, when it comes to voter fraud, all that. And Hans was sounding the alarm on this thing back in May or June. And I read that article, and I texted a lot of my lawyer friends the link to that article, and I was like, guys, what are we doing? And we were caught totally flat-footed, was the Republican Party, was the conservative movement in general, and it was totally shameful. It was absolutely ludicrous. And Rich, my biggest question, probably in all of law and politics since the 2020 election, we hear so much talk about the 2020 election and what went wrong, and we're still having to suffer the consequences of that with these ridiculous prosecutions down in Georgia and all across the country, for that matter, with Jack Smith. But the big question is, have we actually fixed it? Have we gotten it right? Or are we just griping about the past? And it's great that we have some rulings like this in Pennsylvania, but I do worry still. I genuinely do worry that no matter what the polls currently say, Trump may be ahead in a horse race in a 3-4-way matchup with RFK Jr., Cornel West, whatever. But I really do worry, Rich, that just not enough has been done at a state level to get voter fraud in the franchise and mail-in balloting, the ballot harvesting, all these various tactics under control. But having said that, that is why I was very heartened to see this story today out of Pennsylvania and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
Right. And so I think it's safe to say, at least I feel, this is a spoke in the wheel of where we need to get, but we're not quite there. What are some of the other elements that you think need to happen? Because I know they made some progress in Pennsylvania, and then they kind of went back with Act 77. And it's not just Pennsylvania, right? There's other states involved. But what do you think needs to happen for you to be satisfied?
Well, Pennsylvania is a big state. I mean, it's not just a big state based on the Electoral College. It's also a swing state. I mean, it's very much one of the it's one of the 6 or 7 states these days that essentially decides the outcome of the election. So it's definitely an important state in and of its own right. It was also one of the 2 states, as you alluded to, during 2020, along with North Carolina. I think those are the 2 states that most egregiously changed their voting laws in unconstitutional fashion. So the U.S. Constitution is unambiguous about this, Rich. It is crystal clear that if a state wants to change its voting laws, procedures, how elections are conducted, how ballots are mailed out, things like that, the legislature has to do it. It's in crystal clear language in Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. And nonetheless, Pennsylvania and North Carolina both changed their voting procedures in 2020 under the guise of the COVID pandemic. They both changed it via either judicial fiat or administrative fiat. And you can't do that. And as you just said, the Supreme Court did not ultimately hear these cases either at all or on time. The Pennsylvania case was not heard at all. You had some blistering dissents from Justices Thomas and Alito as to why it was not heard. But we still have a long way to go. And look, my ideal scenario, I'm not predicting that this is going to happen overnight or anything, but my dream scenario, here's kind of the grand compromise that I would try to offer to my colleagues, friends, interlocutors on the left side of the American political spectrum. Let's go ahead and say that Election Day actually is a national holiday, right? Let's go ahead and say you're off work, kind of like the European countries do. I'll give you that in exchange for single-day required in-person voting with extremely limited exceptions, active duty military overseas, chronically ill in your 80s, 90s, can't leave your hospital bed, stuff like that. But we have to, I think, be willing to probably compromise on something in order to get to this single-day paradigm and get rid of this ridiculous system. And it really
election
is ridiculous.
Month. Yeah.
Exactly. Like 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, an election is a snapshot in time. It's not a moving target. It really just is absurd.
I agree. Josh Hammer is the senior editor at large at Newsweek, and he hosts a bunch of different things. You got to check him out. We're coming right back with him. We're going to continue this conversation and add a couple of other elements to it. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back with Josh Hammer. I am Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. Rich Valdez, and we are continuing our conversation on how we fix this election stuff, the good news that's come out of the circuit court, and I want to add a couple of other things to our conversation with Josh Hammer. He's an attorney, senior editor at large at Newsweek, host of America on Trial on the First TV, and host of the Josh Hammer podcast. Make sure you check that out. Now, Josh Hammer, I want to put a pin in this stuff, but ultimately, I think we agree this is a good decision, and hopefully one that will be, solidified, maybe with an appearance before the Supreme Court, so that it's irrefutable moving forward. Is there anything else that you want to flag? I don't think I see anything from where I sit that is election related that's on the docket before Election Day, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, as far as like the nuts and bolts, Rich, of mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting and all of that, I can't think of a major case that's popping up right now, but I would certainly expect something to materialize. I mean, this issue it has not really been resolved, to the conversation that we were just having prior to the break. It's very much still a roiling and ongoing issue. So I expect in a presidential election year like this there to be some more cases. And, like I said, it would not surprise me at all if something ultimately reaches the Supreme Court. But for now, like I said, I'm really just happy that this was an opinion, not even written by one of those nefarious Trump nominees. One of those crazy far right judges that the liberal
right. So they could tell Trump guy did it, right?
Yeah. By the way, I actually clerked for a Trump-nominated judge myself, and he's an amazing jurist and a brilliant legal intellectual. So I'm obviously being tongue-in-cheek here. But sure. The point is that it's nice that this was done by a Democratic appointee as well, Judge Ambrose of the Third Circuit.
All right, Josh Hammer. I want to switch gears to this case in Georgia, which seems, again, from my view, my perspective, seems to be unraveling somewhat, where new information today that the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, her case against former President Trump in Georgia, was dealt a blow, according to the piece in Newsweek, over the matter because of the judge has now agreed to hear pretrial motions, meaning he's going to listen to Trump's side of the story, which is something they weren't doing before, as I understand it. Tell us about this.
So, the upshot, Rich, for those who are kind of just tuning in here, is that there's so much pretrial back and forth going on here that this case is extraordinarily unlikely to even make it to trial at all prior to November, let alone, I think, to arrive at any kind of verdict or, God forbid, a conviction as well. So on the basic prosecution, which is this RICO charge, this racketeering charge against Donald Trump and his 18 other co-defendants, at least one of whom, Jen Ellis, has already taken a plea deal, and most of the others have not. So, and you have some high-profile co-defendants here in Georgia, folks like my friends John Eastman, folks like Rudy Giuliani, folks like Jeffrey Clark, Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff. Right now, you have this bespoke Solomonic baby splitting of a remedy that the trial court judge, Scott McAfee, tried to concoct a couple of weeks ago, where he basically said that Nathan Wade, the illicit lover and special prosecutor, had to go as a condition of Fani Willis, the far left prosecutor, being able to stay on the case. He didn't really follow the letter of the law in doing that. I think that the actual law that he accepted should have led him to a more straightforward conclusion, namely that Fani Willis is unfit to bring this case. And to Judge McAfee's credit, he did fairly soon thereafter grant a certificate of immediate review, which kicks it up to the appellate judges above him in the Georgia State Appellate Court. So that's where we basically are right now, is we're waiting for the appellate court before any further action can really be taken. We're waiting for the appellate court to actually rule as to whether Fani is even going to be on this case in the first place. So, this article you're referring to, it's true. There was a separate pretrial motion today, and Fani Willis definitely did have a setback there. You recall there's a lot of moving parts to this Georgia prosecution. Right. A lot of this stuff is kind of confusing in general. But before Judge McAfee even ruled the way that I just described, where he basically kicked down Nathan Wade and then left Fani Willis there, if you recall, he actually said that at least 6 of the criminal counts of the
Right.
30, 40, whatever it
Didn't
is,
apply.
are no longer valid because there's just no supporting evidence to justify it whatsoever. So that is basically, it is a similar kind of motion that was filed today, basically just setting Fani Willis back and saying that your case is not as ironclad, not as tight as it looks. But for all intents and purposes, what we're really waiting on there is to hear whether the appellate court is actually going to kick out Fani, because we really need to know that before this thing can go any further.
Now, from your purview, and I know you're trying to play it safe, but if you had to take a guess, if you were a betting man, do you think that they say, yeah, no, this is absolutely insane, she's got to go? Or do they stick by Judge McAfee and say, look, no, as long as one or the other goes, then we're okay with that?
So I was a little surprised, honestly, that Judge McAfee actually did what he did. I mean, partially because he himself is a conservative judge. He was put into that position by Judge Brian Kemp of Georgia. You know, he's a card-carrying member of the Federal Society, the well-known legal conservative organization, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's worried about his election. Georgia has judicial elections, so you can't discount that as a possibility. It's a far-left jurisdiction in Fulton County, but basically, one of the main arguments that Trump and his co-defendants and then Fani Willis's lawyers were making was they were debating what the legal standard should be to mandate disqualification. And the debate was basically whether it had to be an actual, a demonstrable conflict of interest or the mere appearance of impropriety. And McAfee basically sided with Trump on that. He basically said that the mere appearance of impropriety of a conflict of interest is itself a really, really big deal. And then he just didn't have the courage of his convictions, it seems, to take it all the way to its conclusion. So it depends on the nature of the appellate panel. You're going to have some liberal judges, some conservative judges. But overall, if I were placing a wager, I probably would err on the side of Fani ultimately not being able to try this case, which would all but guarantee that there's just no chance that this thing gets heard before November.
Right, and I think that's the case for the others, unless you disagree. But I don't think any of these are going to make it before, right? Any of these four major cases makes it all the way, other than the civil fraud thing that's been ongoing. Do you think that any of the other cases are going to have any major development between now and Election Day?
So, still chance of making it before November is the Alvin Bragg case. That's the one in New York City, of course. Right. That is set to commence as of now, pending any further delays, but they just rejected a delay, so it's probably going to be set for now. That's going to get started very shortly on April 15th. It actually was supposed to start this Monday, but they pushed back a few weeks because of a document dump from the federal prosecutor's office. Basically what happened there was you had the federal prosecutor's office, the SDNY, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. They had spent a lot of time looking into this exact underlying activity involving Stormy Daniels, and they were thinking of prosecuting Trump. And then they decided that they couldn't do so, but Alvin Bragg, who is a Soros-funded far-left hack, has no such compunctions. So that's basically what happened there. And then the Fed dumped a lot of documents last minute, so they kicked it back to April 15th. But that is the one case that I actually think, look, just trying to game this thing out, if it's starting April 15th, I'm not going to say that I can guarantee it's going to finish. I hope that it doesn't finish, but I think it's a real possibility. I think it's probably close to a coin flip. It's probably close to a 50-50 coin flip. That also happens to be, Rich, as you know, by far the most ludicrous and asinine of any of these cases. It is absolute, unequivocal garbage. When Alvin Bragg dropped these indictments, just about a year ago now, it was like early April of 2023. I mean, the New York Times editorial board couldn't even support it. They issued like a very lukewarm, ham-fisted endorsement. CNN was struggling to get anyone on air to defend it. It is a remarkable, remarkable stretch. So, even if the worst happens there in the Alvin Bragg hush money payment case, I have to think that the American people, by and large, are going to see through that one.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, honestly, this stuff has really worked well for Trump. All of these things, all 91 counts, have really helped him with fundraising and polling and everything else. Now, with that being said, with this most recent case, the judge reduces the bond amount to something somewhat more normal, right? I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, paid $200 million, and he ripped off half of the world. And, Trump is running a massive RICO operation in Georgia and, gets $175 million after he gets this big discount. Do you think that gets appealed as well, where nothing happens, or what do you think the outcome of that is, or does he have to ultimately make that payment?
Well, I think he's probably going to ultimately have to post a $175 million bond. They swooped in at the last moment there. I mean, we were literally looking at a 12:01 a.m. Tuesday morning deadline for Tish James to potentially start seizing assets. I mean, that's how close to the wire we got. And you finally had the appellate panel swoop in there and reduce this thing. But, you only get lucky so many times. And I'm not entirely sure that Trump is going to strike luck yet again. He should. To be clear, I think that he should. Of all of the legal cases currently facing Donald Trump, I know that I was just heavily criticizing the Alvin Bragg prosecution. I think the fraud case is actually even more ridiculous, to be honest with you. And it's actually it's genuinely harrowing. As someone myself who grew up in New York State, who always viewed New York City as the financial capital of the world, where entrepreneurs go, where venture capitalists go. I mean, as Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank has been running around saying, and he's totally right about this, why would you invest in New York State? Why would you do it after this sort of use of state power to try to bankrupt a family business that's been built for across multiple generations? It's truly, truly dangerous stuff. They are really, really, really playing with fire here. But I think Trump's probably going to have to actually post this bond to get his appeal, which is itself problematic, by the way. I mean, you have a constitutional right. You have a due process right to at least one appeal. And I guess it is a quirk of New York State law that they assume that you have to post the full bond payment just to get your right of appeal in a fraud case like this. An enterprising lawyer there who was a pro-Trump lawyer, I think maybe could file a creative sort of constitutional due process lawsuit here. I could possibly see that being an interesting constitutional challenge, but that wouldn't be resolved anytime soon. It would just be more of a symbolic thing than anything else. So for practical purposes, Trump's probably going to have to pay that. He probably has the cash on hand. I mean, after the reduction, that's just a speculation on my part. But sure. I genuinely hope, Rich, my full personal opinion on this, I genuinely hope that he ultimately prevails on appeal in this case, just because I really do fear the repercussions of it so much, no matter what your opinions on Donald Trump himself may or may not be.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's my concern too. It's really not political, and it's not. I'm biased toward Trump, but for me, it's the rule of law. It's the Constitution. It's America. If we go that far for him, they'll go that far for me, you, and everybody else, and that to me is the bigger problem. Folks, we're on with Josh Hammer, Newsweek. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Sam Bankman-Fried, a former CEO of failed crypto exchange FTX, reportedly sentenced to 25 years in prison by a Manhattan federal judge after a jury found him guilty on 7 charges last fall for money laundering to securities fraud. Manhattan federal Judge Kaplan, who presided over that trial last fall, pointed to testimony from Bankman-Fried's former colleague, Carolyn Ellison, saying that he knew what he did was wrong and that he knew that Alameda was spending customer funds on risky investments.
There you go. Sam Bankman-Fried gets 25 years. Josh Hammer, what are your thoughts on this one? Did he get enough?
I mean, 25 years is no joke, right? I mean, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember exactly what Bernie Madoff got, but I have to imagine that Sam Bankman-Fried probably should have gotten that. I imagine that Bernie Madoff actually got a lot more than that, so probably not quite enough there. I mean, I guess my number one thought when it comes to Sam Bankman-Fried, this guy was in his early 20s, making hundreds of millions, billions of dollars on paper. Do you really think you're going to get away with it? I mean, that really is the number one thought that I just have whenever I see a story like this. I mean, how in the world did you not think that this thing was going to come crashing down? And you know, Rich, I live in the South Florida area. It's a real bit of whiplash for people who live in the greater Miami area, because our basketball arena, the Miami Heat Arena, was literally called FTX Arena, and you know they changed the sponsorship of that arena awfully quickly after the scandal with Sam Bankman-Fried initially came down there. But look, he showed no remorse whatsoever, at least as far as I can tell. I have not seen him talk about any kind of regret or remorse. So he deserves to go off for a very, very long time. And it's probably not enough. I mean, he has very influential parents. They're Stanford law professors and big Democratic Party donors. He grew up in something of Democratic Party royalty out in the San Francisco Bay Area. So you do have to wonder whether that's factoring into the sentencing here. But you know, 25 years at the end of the day is also no joke, and it's hard to be too terribly upset about it either, I guess.
Yeah, I hear that. Now, I want to make sure that we have enough time to make sure that everybody knows everything you're doing, right? Because I think it's been a really robust conversation. And you've got two different shows that you're hosting. You've got the Josh Hammer Show, which is your podcast. And I'm going to presume people can just go onto their podcast app and look for that. But how do they catch your other program, the America on Trial?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Rich. So they're both everywhere you get your podcast, actually, Josh Hammer Show and America on Trial with Josh Hammer. And I also write a weekly syndicated column that comes out Friday morning, so be on the lookout for it tomorrow morning. It goes up at Newsweek, where I work, and then a number of other Right Up Center publications, Town Hall, Daily Signal, Daily Caller, Real Clear Politics, you name it. And then I'm also on social media, Twitter, Josh_Hammer, Instagram @JoshBHammer, and just trying to do what little I can, Rich, to further our mutual cause. So it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, likewise. I appreciate the conversation. I think you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I hope we'll have you back soon.
I hope so, too. Look forward to it.
All right, Josh Hammer. Folks, we're going to come right back. Actually, we're going to get to a couple. Do I have time for calls right now, or do we? All right, we're going to take a quick break because they're forcing me to. And then we're coming right back, and we got calls from all over the place. We're going to get to them. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. We've got calls from all over the place. Hopefully we can get to a number of you. Let's see what the clock allows. Let's go to Canton, Ohio, WNIR. Check in with Gabby. Gabby, go right ahead.
Debbie. Yes. Hi.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi,
Welcome.
Rich. Hey, I'm so glad to get a platform tonight to speak to you about the Trump stumping Bibles. I'm sorry. I am a conservative Christian. This really breaks my heart. I'm sorry. I think he makes a mockery of Christians right now. I think he's taking advantage of I'm sorry. You don't sell religion. You live it. You give it. You do not sell it. That's all I got to say. And I'm sorry. It breaks my heart that he's doing that.
Yeah. Now, does it break your heart that he's doing it? We lost Debbie. I was curious to know if it was because he's Trump, or should we not sell Bibles in general? It's really my question, because I know that. I know. I don't know about you guys, but Winning Publications and 45 Books, those are companies that Trump owns, right? These are publishing companies, and he's decided to publish a Bible. Zondervan publishes Bibles. I think there's a number of companies that publish Bibles. And I get it. I'm not disagreeing with anybody's position. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. I wonder if Barack Obama put out a Bible, if I'd like it. I'd probably say, come on, you're a fake, phony fraud. Get out of here. But you never know. I mean, I do believe in the free market, so I'm wondering which of my opinions would overcome the other. Anyway, folks, thank you for your calls. My friends in KDKA, I'm going to try and get to you shortly. Don't go anywhere. Rich Valdez coming right back.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of the program, Thursday night. And a couple of headlines here for you. We've got disgraced crypto king Sam Bankman-Fried sentenced to 25 years for fraud. All right, Sam, que te vaya bien, all right? I hope it goes well for you in prison. Then we got Vice President Que Mala Eres. She's celebrating the creation of hundreds of thousands of jobs in Central America. This comes on the heels of her traveling to Puerto Rico and having protesters there, questioning, in song, right? They were protesting in song, and she was clapping along to it until somebody translated for her and told her, hey, these guys are actually questioning. Like, what'd you talk about with the governor? Why are you here? What are you doing? And that was a very funny scene. We played some audio of that, I think, last Friday when it happened. Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, had very little to say about the Maryland bridge collapse. We played some of his comments yesterday, and he had even less to say today. And there's also thousands of illegal aliens scheduled to arrive in a massive caravan that you've been seeing. It looks like a little army marching towards the border there. They're bound for El Paso, and they're just a few days away. So that's where we are. And I want to go to the phones because there was a number of people in the last hour that wanted to get on and didn't have an opportunity. And I want to make sure you have a chance to weigh in. And, of course, we're still going to do Open Phone America at the top of the next hour. But I wanted to take a couple of calls now because we were talking about the Trump Bible. And we had some interesting comments there. We also had, some commentary about the bridge that many are calling a bridge collapse. And I'm going to say it was a bridge that was knocked over by a ship that now they're saying they're missing the last 2 minutes of the black box. I mean, it just doesn't all add up. But again, I'm looking at it from that perspective. I think if I were looking at it with a little bit more grace, I'd say, well, I could come up with all sorts of excuses to make it make sense. But it just doesn't seem like it does. Anyway, we continue. Where do we go? Let's go to Bill, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. I wasn't even thinking of the guy, but until you were talking to your guest and you brought up Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yes.
Whatever the hell. I don't blame the dude because take a look at him. He probably would have never gotten laid in his life.
He comes from money, Bill. He comes from money. I think he would have done well with the ladies. He has money. He didn't have to steal everybody else's money.
I know, but I just don't think he looks smart enough. He looks like the guy that was in Animal House, not John Belushi.
You're right. That's so funny. All he needs is the white sheet, the toga. Oh man, that's funny.
I can't think of his name. But and one more. What I really called you for was, yes, the bridge collapse, which didn't collapse. It was hit by a big boat. Whatever
cargo ship.
Supply boat, cargo ship. I'm sorry. Why did our crazy president come right out right after the very next day and said, "We will pay for this. We will pay for this ship." Rich was from Singapore. It's from Singapore.
I think you're right, Bill. And I just, something I mentioned the other night, now I'll reiterate it now, is that I don't understand why. I haven't seen Joe Biden move this quick on any decision ever. All of a sudden, he was like, no, we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it. The federal government, we're pledging everything. I can't help but think there's a little bit more to this than meets the eye. I mean, maybe there's some symbolism in the fact that they hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge, maybe kind of an attack on America. I don't know. I want to believe the best. I really do. It doesn't seem normal to me. It just really doesn't. But again, it could be. I'm not sold one way or the other. What I do know is that the response seems outrageous. You had Hawaii burning down to the ground, and Biden was silent. You had East Palestine, Ohio, train derailment. Biden was like, what? Where? Who? How? I mean, so many different things that have happened. And Biden's in New York City, where there was a police officer killed, likely because of his colleagues, the Democrats, and the soft on crime, pro-crime, progressive policies that they espoused. And his mum is the word. Nothing. So how is it that you respond so quickly to say we're going to pay for this when it could easily be paid for by insurance? I don't know the answer to that, but it definitely looks shady to me. Bill in Pittsburgh, thanks for your call. Let's keep it in Pittsburgh, and let's keep going. We've got Dan in Pittsburgh. Dan, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. I want to, I'll say I'll have a toast to the the previous Pittsburgher. I don't drink, but I can't speak for everybody. But I wanted to say that, have a Holy Friday and a blessed Easter for you, your staff, and the listeners that accept that premise. And to go back to the bridge, I hadn't heard on the news except for some of the news broadcasts were shortening the phrase to the Key Bridge. Now, if you want to go to a Key Bridge, you go down to the Florida Keys. This happens to be a gentleman's name, and I don't think it is proper to call it the Key Bridge when it has a proper name. And this was, newscasters shortening the name, and with the scenario of the type of craft it was, would it not have been reasonable that tugboats of some sort would have accompanied that craft through an area that it was passing through? I haven't heard anything mentioned about that.
Yeah, I've had a couple of callers mention that, Dan, and I think it's a valid point. I don't know if that's the case. I'm no expert in maritime anything, but I agree with you. As far as your point on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, I agree that we probably should have a more formal mode of address, being that it is Francis Scott Key. But being a native New Yorker and living in Jersey now, I can tell you the GWB or the George Washington Bridge is occasionally the Washington Bridge. Many people do still call it the George Washington, and they leave off the bridge if they want to, shorten it up. But there's times where, we say Washington Bridge. And I don't think it's any intentional disrespect. I think it's just, the nomenclature of the area. So I'm not going to hold it against them for that. But I agree that it can look interesting or funny, if you will, when you have a lot of people that are skeptical and suspicious about what's going on. And then, you decide to kind of abbreviate the name. Maybe that's a good time to be more formal, right? And just say the Francis Scott Key Bridge, because there may be some importance to this. And the other part of what I was saying, not only was there a rush to say they're going to fix the bridge, but there was also a rush to say this is not terrorism. It's kind of like, the movies where the kid comes home and the parents are looking at him funny and they're like, I swear I wasn't drinking. And then they start hiccuping and they smell like alcohol. It seemed like a scenario like that to me. Dan in Pittsburgh on America's oldest radio station. Thank you for your call, my friend. Let's see. We have another Pittsburgher on the line from KDKA. David, go right ahead.
Richard
all right.
Gerald?
All right.
Hello,
I can't hear David. It's not coming through clear.
Can you hear
Let's go
me,
to
sir?
Steve in Atlanta. Steve on AM 920. The Answer. Steve, go right ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call,
You got it, brother.
Mr. Valdez. The Trump Bible thing. You were talking about that, and that's what prompted my call.
Sure.
So So how many mega million churches are there, right? And can you fault them for putting forward the God? And then let's think about all of the rap songs and that teach demonic, stuff, and they make millions of dollars. It is just brilliant of Trump to promote the Bible through his name. And isn't that what we're supposed to do through our speech and through our name, through our standing in society? Isn't that what we're supposed to do as Christians, as servants?
I'm with you. Look, I'm with you on that one. And I think from just a more practical sense, I think Holy Week is here. I think Trump is coming up with unique ways to continue to raise money. He's a remarkable businessman, in my opinion. He's developed an amazing brand over the years. I'm very biased because I'm a New Yorker and I grew up seeing Trump. Trump Village is in Brooklyn. He's from Queens, but Trump Village is in Brooklyn. And that's where Fred Trump, his dad, started everything. And I can tell you that I've seen Trump, as a little kid, he was this big mogul in the city. And it was synonymous with making it in life is, Trump, making money like Trump. That's why all the rappers liked him because, that was how they said it in the songs. And I remember the Woolman rink thing with Central Park when the city couldn't figure out how to fix the ice skating rink. He just came in and fixed it. That's just the Trump that I've seen growing up. So when you look at a guy who's, casinos, you bet. Neckties, you bet. Shirts, you bet. Right? He got into every hustle, and everyone he got in, he made his money and he got out because he understood that he could lend his name to a lot of things and make some money. And he's a big-time licensing guy, honestly, is how he does his thing. And he builds these properties and then resells them. It's just good for him is what I think. Now, can you combine the two? Sure. He's a former president. I don't think I would sell Bibles because I don't think anybody would buy one, right? Maybe if I wrote a book, maybe people might buy that. But I don't think people would care about the Rich Valdez Bible. However, I think people say, you know what, Trump Bible? Sure. Because, again, he's not writing the Bible. He's just promoting the Bible. And why not? He just promoted sneakers. He promoted a non-fungible token, a collector's card. I mean, there's so many things that he, in days, made millions of dollars on. And it's because he has a following. And some years ago, I had gotten friendly, probably about 10, 12 years ago, with the manager for the rapper and actor Ice-T. And he's still a friend of mine, a guy named Mickey Benson. And I remember Mickey Benson telling me about, just different things about music business, music promotion, concert promotion, and, how his 30 or 40 years working with Ice-T, things that he's learned along the way. And then I saw an interview that Ice-T did, and he mentioned something that I thought was remarkable. And he said, all you need is 1,000 super fans. 1,000. He said, just, you keep building until you get them. And when he said, once you have that 1,000 people that are loyal, that like you come out with a new piece of merch and they're buying it, a new T-shirt, they buy it, a new hat, they buy it. These 1,000 super loyal fans. And he said, and you could have tens of thousands of fans, but if you have 1,000, just 1,000 that are loyal. And he said, when you're selling merch, you don't sell shirts for, $15. He said, you're spending $35, $40 for these items. He said, when you have $35,000 or $40,000 and you have 1,000 people that are guaranteed to buy it, you're making $35,000 or $40,000 every time you release a new piece of merchandise or a new CD or a new whatever. And he said, and that's how I figured out that end of the business, of show business. And it opened up a world for me that I never thought about before. And I said, wow, that makes a ton of sense. And in effect, that's what Trump's doing, right? Trump is a rock star, and without making rock music, he's a rock star. And why not, come up with new pieces of merch, the new MAGA hat, the Trump Bible, this, that. I think he's offering different things to different people and slowly enlarging the circle of people that actually support him, whether it's, young people that are into sneakers and collectible sneakers and things like that. I think it's brilliant, honestly. Thank you for your call. They're telling me I have to take a break right here because I talk too much. So I'm going to take that pause, coming right back with your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with you all, the American people. And where do we go from here? Let me see. I want to go to Sue from Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, listening to WXDE. Sue, how are you?
Pretty good. So, yeah, I'm with you. You know, the minute that I heard about this bridge thing, I really thought it was terrorism. I mean, you know, because they came out so quickly saying that it was, they couldn't possibly know that at that point. But, you know, some of the things that strike me are the fact that it's the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the symbolism of that being that he wrote our national anthem. I mean, if somebody did this, if they're terrorists or saboteurs, they're laughing real hard right now. Not to mention the fact, I was just reading that something called rapid response naval vessels are now trapped in that bay. And I'm sure if you're a terrorist or a saboteur, you would know the boats that are in there when you're doing this. And if these rapid response or what they call ready reserve vessels, they're used for conflict and in war and things like this. So you got to wonder, you know, if they're now out of commission, there's 4 of them there. You got to wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah. And, you know, Sue, and again, I'm not trying to feed any conspiracy theory. I'm not. I'm really just trying to be objective and be analytical about this. And former President Barack Obama helped produce a film. I forget what it's called, but something about like the end of the world. And in this film, hackers take over airliners, I think some ships, as well as like Tesla's electric vehicles. And all sorts of bad things happen when they take over these vehicles. And it's an interesting thing to me that this is the message that's being put into the minds of so many Americans, i.e. me, from Barack Obama. So don't go blaming me for thinking that this is a possible way of attacking America when, you know, I'm old enough to remember when people took commercial airliners and flew them into a building to destroy the building. So why not take a cargo ship and point it at a bridge to take out a bridge? I see what you're saying. You know, if you want to cordon off a couple of ships, that's one way of doing it. Sue, I appreciate your call. Thank you for your insight, your analysis. Quick shout out, by the way, to our friend Kim in Shields, Michigan. Kim, I haven't heard from you in a while. I hope you're doing well. You popped into mind, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to you. God bless you. Folks, I'm going to be busy reading my Trump Bible during the break. The rest of you that are hanging on, hopefully we'll get to you in a moment. We have a guest lined up in this segment. But David in Pittsburgh, thanks for calling back. I appreciate it. Todd in Atlanta, thank you for mentioning the Lee Greenwood Bible with Donald Trump. Frank in Evergreen, stand by, and we got others on hold. I'm going to try and get to you, but we've got more to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It was nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Sources tell ABC News guns were found in both the LA and Miami locations, and law enforcement sources tell us the feds are looking for evidence that could corroborate accounts of accusers who have spoken with prosecutors at the Southern District of New York. The allegations include sex trafficking, but Combs says he is innocent and he will fight to clear his name.
So we've been talking this week about 2 homes belonging to Sean Puff Daddy P. Diddy Combs in Los Angeles and Miami were searched and raided by FBI, well, actually Homeland Security investigators. And this is a big deal. It's part of a sex trafficking investigation. He says, stop breaking down my door. This is crazy. You've got nothing. There's a whole lot of back and forth going on. All sorts of people are coming out of the woodwork saying he's this and he's that. His ex-girlfriend said that she was assaulted by him. I mean, this is a common practice, sadly, in the music business that we've heard from many, many people. And this is overall just as a huge, huge industry. You've got gangs that are making $3 trillion a year as Southeast Asia becomes the human trafficking hub of the world. And that's according to Interpol. So just a lot going on here. And I want to make sense of this story and of the latest on what's happening in the world of sex trafficking with our guest, Bianca Davis. She's the CEO of New Friends, New Life, and they dedicate themselves to this particular topic. Bianca Davis, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. So tell us about how did you get involved in this work?
Yeah, so about for the last 13 years or so, I have been in the nonprofit space, focusing on issues that disproportionately affect women and girls. So I started with the issue of domestic violence, which is another just global and international crisis and something that's very prevalent locally as well. And then made the transition over to the issue of sex trafficking, which has so much similarity to something like domestic violence. And I was really inspired by the opportunity that we would have to reintroduce survivors to the community. I think it's easy to stigmatize someone who looks to be willingly on a corner or in a club or escorting, but when you know the real tethers that connect and keep women and girls primarily trapped in this industry, you just see them differently. And so I was inspired by the opportunity to retell the story of survivors and get the community to see them for who they are, which are victims of a crime.
Right. And I agree with that statement. I know that years ago I worked in government, and I learned a lot about, a lot more than I knew about this particular topic on how when you have a lot of prostitution rings in particular, these are not girls that were, grew up being promiscuous and decided, oh, wow, I'm already loosey-goosey. Let me go out there and make $1 doing it. Well, that may be the case in some circumstances. And in majority of these circumstances, these girls were kidnapped or they ran away or they were, taken in by a pimp or, for lack of a better word, and groomed for this lifestyle. And they're like psychologically tortured to be worthless and to be a sex slave. And it's something you don't realize because, you just think, oh, that's their job. Like, why would somebody do that? Because they want to do it. But the reality is, you're right. It's not. This is a very pervasive, very sick, very deep thing. And I'm glad that there's people out there like you doing this work. Now, what can you tell us, if anything at all, with respect to this larger case that is being investigated by the federal government that recently involved P. Diddy? Have you heard any development on that?
We haven't heard any additional developments, but watching the case unfold, just like all viewers and listeners are, there are things that are just ringing true, right? So we understand that sex trafficking is a crime. First of all, it's a federal crime, so that explains the federal involvement, federal law enforcement involvement in this crime. It didn't become a federal crime until the year 2000. So we are years behind in fighting the issue of human trafficking or sex trafficking on a national level, but it is happening. But what rings true is it tends to be cloaked in things like men with money and power and influence and resource. So we're not necessarily looking for white vans in a parking lot or someone who is trapped in a basement, especially in the United States. Victims of sex trafficking are lured into this industry. They're trafficked by someone who claims to be a boyfriend or someone who cares about them, a partner, sometimes even a parent. So this idea of someone like Mr. Sean Combs, who has money and resource and influence and power, him being attractive to girls, women who are under that lure of, hey, he cares about me, or this is a way for me to move forward in the music industry. Whatever the story is, watching that unfold just rings true to what we see at agencies like New Friends, New Life every single day.
Outstanding work. Folks, we're on with Bianca Davis. She is the CEO of New Friends, New Life, and they work with women who have escaped sex trafficking. We're discussing this Sean Combs case and overall the larger story of how, trafficking starts and the effects that it has. We're going to hear some of her stories when we come back. Again, our phone number, if you want to join the conversation, 833-482-5337. Right now, the topic is sex trafficking, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, America. We continue our conversation with Bianca Davis. We're discussing sex trafficking. She's the CEO of New Friends, New Life. And Bianca, some of the folks that you've worked with, these women who've shared their plight with you, what's the most remarkable story that stands out in your time doing this work?
Oh, wow. There are so many. I always say it's a miracle every time a woman walks through our doors, right? Because by the time she's trafficked, I heard a survivor put it this way. She said, by the time a girl or a woman is trafficked, that's not the first bad thing that's happened to her. Right, so women are showing up at our doors, literally with pieces of their lives in their hands. Like, can you help me with this? So they lack education. A lot of trafficking victims have dropped out of high school. They may have multiple children. Many of them have a criminal record because of what they were forced to do while they were being trafficked. So if they're committing something like prostitution, which is illegal in most places, they are now both perpetrator and victim at the same time because they're doing it because they're forced to, but it's also illegal. So they show up at our doors with a criminal record. And how are they supposed to move forward with an apartment or with a job with these things saddled on their backs? So we know that there is a history of trauma. You talked about it earlier. Maybe they've run away. Maybe they've come from backgrounds of poverty as children, or they've been abused. And the other side of that, which is the story I want to talk about, is we also have people who seem to have come from the perfect background, right? So we had a survivor who grew up in a two-parent home in an affluent part of Dallas. She was really living the life. She was 17 years old, walked into a bar with a few friends and met a bartender who just said, "We've never seen someone as beautiful as you." And she kept coming back. She started drinking. Next thing you know, she's now hooked on meth, and she spent years being trafficked, being sold, and also drug addicted. She came through our program and was able to get the therapy and the support that she needed. A few years later, she was actually pardoned by the governor of Texas, wiping her record clean, and she now works for us as a youth counselor. So to see someone go through the entire experience, but coming from a background where parents are like, where did I go wrong here, right? That happens as well. So it literally can happen to anyone. The average age that a girl is trafficked in the United States, it's just 15 years old. So that's what we're up against. We're up against people who are grooming particularly our daughters, but also our boys at an alarming rate. We know that online grooming has especially skyrocketed since the pandemic. There has been a 40% increase of that online grooming piece. We talk about all the apps and how they put children at risk for meeting people from different parts of the country who then fly them in or fly in and assault them. I mean, it's unbelievable what we are up against as a society when we're trying to fight this crime.
Folks, we're on with Bianca Davis. She is the CEO of New Friends, New Life, and they dedicate themselves to helping women who are survivors of sex trafficking. And Bianca, it's a remarkable story that you shared, this woman coming from, a seemingly picture-perfect family and still getting caught up in this, as well as others who don't come from a picture-perfect family and get caught up in it. The reality is there isn't a rhyme or reason other than they're all victims. And I can agree with that. Those that have been trafficked. It's from what I've seen, it's just horrific, absolutely horrific. What does it look like, the process of recovering?
Yeah, it's really complex. We at New Friends New Life, we have identified or created three main buckets of support. So the first piece of that process is how do we meet her immediate basic needs? Many women who have been trafficked are tethered to their trafficker financially. And so before we can even counsel her or provide an open door, we have to help her with things like, where are you sleeping tonight? What are you eating? How are you physically taking care of yourself? So that's the first phase. And the first phase is the most difficult phase because that's when she is closest to the industry. She may have feelings for this person. He might be a boyfriend or a husband. And so we have to make sure that her immediate basic needs are met. Once she is secure there, and you may remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs from school days, right? Every person, we need food, water, shelter. Nothing else matters. And so we help her with those immediate needs. And then we look at unpacking that emotional trauma because in essence, she has been assaulted night after night by multiple people, sometimes for years. So how do you recover from that emotionally? We have master's level trained therapists who can safely unpack trauma and help her heal emotionally. And then the third piece and the final piece is how do we get her back into society in a contributing way? So does she need educational skills? Does she need a vocational training? What does she need so that she can sustain herself, get a paycheck, find housing, and support herself? And so we have a 4-phase program that takes a woman through that journey. And by the end, it's the most amazing thing. She gets to put on a cap and gown and walk down an aisle and graduate. They bring their children, their employers, their friends. You're thinking about something that's steeped in such shame. To go from that to being proud enough to bring people you love to watch you complete the program, it is just the most special thing. And we serve about 350 women and girls every single year, taking them through this process.
Well, Bianca Davis, that sounds like really like a beautiful thing. I want to learn more about New Friends, New Life when we come back. Folks, we're on with Bianca Davis and her remarkable story of the work that she's doing at newfriendsnewlife.org. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back, amigos. We continue our conversation. And, of course, Open Phone America is coming up. It's minutes away. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're talking about all the topics that we discussed tonight, everything that's going on in America at night, and whatever is on your mind. 833-4-VALDEZ. Looking forward to chatting with you straight ahead. I want to put a pin in our conversation with Bianca Davis. She's the CEO at newfriendsnewlife.org. and their website, humantraffickinghotline.org, humantraffickinghotline.org. Bianca Davis, tell us a little bit about what is coming down the pipe for you with this work that you're doing.
Well, we are so excited about our commitment to removing barriers that survivors of trafficking face. And so we added a legal clinic on site. We have a staff attorney who can help her clear her cases, seal her records, all the things that she needs to do. We have employment partnerships, but the most recent development is adding an educational specialist on site to help our women pass their GEDs or get the high school education for our teens that they need. So really that tangible work of removing roadblocks. And I think if there's one message that I would share to anyone listening is that survivors of trafficking are so much more like us than different from us. It's easy for us to think, what type of woman does XYZ, or maybe she's just making bad choices. But all the dreams that we have for ourselves and the women and girls that you know have for themselves, trafficking survivors also had for themselves. And so being able to remove those roadblocks is something that we look forward to every day. We've been around for 25 years doing this work, and we're still uncovering the next thing to help her just live a normal life. And those everyday things excite us.
Doing or support the work you're doing, how do they find you?
You can find us at newfriendsnewlife.org, and we're also on all of the social sites. So we are on Facebook and X and Instagram as New Friends, New Life.
Outstanding. Well, Godspeed to you. I think the work that you're doing is just phenomenal work, and I'm happy that it's happening. Because again, up until recently, I didn't know. I was like part of everybody else that just thought, it's the oldest profession. People want to do this. It's the easy way out for many. And I realized, for some it's a drug addiction and they turn to that. But overall, the industry behind this is not one that's created by women that want to be promiscuous. It's one that's of women that are being treated as sex slaves. And it's very eye-opening. So Godspeed to you, Bianca Davis.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having the courage to allow us the platform, because when you're up against money and power and influence, it takes courage to say, we are going to talk about this. So I appreciate the access.
Oh, my pleasure. You're welcome to come back anytime there's developments on stories like this, because this is something I think we part of our national conversation, right? I think people across America need to hear what's going on, need to hear from people on the front lines like yourself that are dealing with these people, so that we understand the fullness of this conversation. And just a brief thought before you go. Years ago, I remember hearing someone making the case, and it's still not something I entirely agree with, but I understand the premise of changing the terminology from prostitution to sex work. And critics were saying that you're trivializing this and making it sound like it's okay, while others were saying, well, you need to remove some of the stigma because these women are trapped into this. And I think the reality is it's both and, right? That it happens both ways. There is no cut and dry here. There's a lot going on. And you need people like you to kind of filter this out and sort through what's going on, because I think, like I just mentioned, there is an entire industry here. And I think the vast majority of women that are working in massage parlors or working, that are not independent, that are part of a ring, are exactly that. They're part of a ring and they're being trafficked. So thank you for the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything you said. Thanks.
Thanks, Bianca. All right, folks. Open Phone America is coming up right now. 833-4-VALDEZ. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. 833-482-5337. We're going to get to your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there. Good evening. What's up, America? I am Rich Valdez. Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Our telephone number, if you want to join our late night national conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. Welcome to hour number 3, Thursday night edition of the broadcast. Big shout out to our network, Westwood One. And I want to get into a few things, right? Earlier, I discussed what was going on with President Trump, with everything in New York City, right? And not just President Trump, President Obama, President Clinton, and President Biden, because they were all in Manhattan just a couple of hours ago. And interestingly, these gentlemen were all here for a planned fundraiser with the musician, singer Lizzo, and none of them made the effort, from what I know, to connect with the family of the officer that was killed in New York City at a traffic stop, except for President Trump, who also, and from what I understand, did what he had to do very quickly to make sure that the folks at the Tunnel to Towers charity were able to be in touch with the widow and offer to pay off their mortgage. Trump shows up at their wake. Good on him, right? Really, good on him. Biden does not. Obama does not. Clinton does not. Not a good look. Not in the least. Now, there's a few things I want to play for you here, and then we're going to get to your calls. I promise we're going to do lots of calls. Because there's lots of people on hold, and I love speaking with the callers. You've got KJP Karine Jean-Pierre. You've got a reporter named Rahima Ellis, who is from MSNBC. She's reporting on the death of the officer and Trump attending the wake. And then she throws in a statistic that I want you to hear. Listen to this.
One of the things we should mention in terms of what the numbers actually tell, according to the FBI, the major crime in cities across this country is down. Here in New York City, according to the NYPD, major crime in New York City is down 2.3% from this time last year.
According to who? Go ahead.
Family who is shattered by the death of their loved one, a 31-year-old man leaving behind a wife and a 9-month-old baby.
Now, listen. You want to know why major crime, whatever major crime is, how this person can say the FBI says major crime is down in cities across the country, or in New York City it's down by 2.3% from this time last year? Raise your hand, class, if you know how that's happening. I'll tell you. If you don't report the crime and you don't arrest people, there's no record of the crime. That's it. It's that simple. Right now, women, young women, 25 and under, are being punched in the face without being robbed. Men are just walking up to women and punching them square in their face. In the last, 4 or 5 days, I've seen at least 3 cases of this. Google it if you don't believe me. You're going to tell me that that's not worse than it was a year ago? And that's a 2.3% decrease from this time last year? Of course not. The difference is these people go straight to the news now. What are they going to do? Call the cops that aren't going to show up? Call the cops that aren't going to arrest anybody? I was at a family wake of my own a couple of months ago, and there were some off-duty NYPD there, and they shared with me in confidence, so no names, but they shared with me that their higher-ups told them, do not arrest the migrants. We can't deport them. We don't want to mess with that. They have orders not to do it. Where do you think that comes from? Politicians telling the chief what to do, pushing it through. Why do you think Keishant Sewell, that was her name, right? The commissioner of NYPD, why do you think she resigned? Why is she not there? She couldn't do her job. Not that she wasn't able to do her job. She wasn't permitted to do her job. because of Eric Adams. Disgusting. Now, speaking of Eric Adams, Karine Jean-Pierre says that Biden spoke with the New York City mayor, but she won't say if Biden spoke to the family of the fallen police officer, Jonathan Diller. Absolutely disgraceful. Not even going to play that one. But I do want to play the next one, number 12. Karine Jean-Pierre is on Air Force One blaming violent crime. Guess on who? The Trump administration. Listen to this.
Violent crime, and I'm just going to be really clear about here. I'm going to be careful about saying anything about 2024, but violent crime surged under the previous administration, which repeatedly attempted to cut the COPS program, all of their budgets targeted that key funding for the police, and congressional Republicans just proposed doing it again. So this is a president, this is a Biden-Harris administration, have done the polar opposite, taking decisive action from the very beginning to fund the police and achieving a historic reduction in crime under his leadership. And so we're going to continue to do that.
You know, it's amazing how she twists things. We had this discussion on my podcast, on my radio show at the time, with the whole COPS Act, this left-leaning stuff. Bogus, right? Bogus. These cops in the city don't rely on federal. They don't rely on federal funding. They're locally funded. They may use some federal funding to buy the best SWAT team, equipment, and whatever grant that they can get, by way of the feds, because they, maybe they want some surplus equipment, or they're buying something unique that they didn't get before, new sniper gear, whatever it is. But they don't exist because they're getting money from the feds. They exist because there's a taxpayer allotment in New York City for an NYPD. And it's important to not lose sight of that. That's number one. Number two, when she says that the violent crime or whatever was up in the previous administration, yes, crime went through the freaking roof during COVID. There were no cops on the street, and many of them were sick. And things were absolute bedlam. You want to blame that on Trump? The fact that we got this virus, what he called the China virus? I don't think we could blame that on Trump. So to attach this increase that happened in 2020 of crime to now is unfair. And to use year-over-year statistics where you're not even reporting crime anymore, that's also unfair. And I think anybody with a brain and two eyes can see that life was way better in the last 4 years than it is right now. So these three clowns, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Joe El Baboso Biden, shame on all of them. And Donald Trump, good on you for showing up today. Folks, the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue with your calls. Open Phone America, time-honored tradition here on this broadcast. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. We've got calls from Atlanta, from New York, from Idaho, Alexandria, Virginia, Evergreen, Montana, Tampa, Florida, Arkansas, Chicago, Illinois, Michigan. I love connecting with Americans from every corner of our fruited plain, and let us begin. Where did I want to start? There was somebody that had been on hold longer than everybody else. Stand by. Give me one moment. Let's go to Eduardo from Tampa, Florida. Listening online, go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, thank you for taking my call. I was listening during the day. A couple of stations were complaining about the Utah DEI, and apparently they were offended because they were being critical of a black mayor and black governor because of their handling of the bridge collapse. But, you know, Baltimore has a very high crime rate. You know what happened with Freddie Gray. And the other day I'm listening to a 911 call where they only have 3 police officers covering that area. I mean, there's rapid crime going on around the country. In Rockford, I used to live in Chicago. You had this guy Soto who stabbed 4 people, including a 15-year-old mailman. I mean, it's sad that it's happening, but a lot of crime is happening from non-white people. But they want to, you know, complain about this DEI and this Utah congressman and Florida congressman that was making comments about DEI. It's pretty ridiculous.
You know, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about Brandon Scott, the mayor of Baltimore. I think that's what you're talking about. And he's saying that white men are calling him a DEI hire because they have no courage to say the N-word. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with his statement. I mean, I think he's probably wrong but I know that there are people like that, right? There are people out there that will say something like that. You don't hire the mayor, right? The mayor gets elected, as last I checked. So I don't think you could say that the mayor is a diversity hire per se. You know, there's certain industries where you have to, it's competitive and you have to earn your spot. I don't support DEI. I think it is a Marxist sham, and it's yet one more way to promote this divide and conquer mentality that I think is hurting America. No one race is superior to another, and no one race is oppressing another. I think it goes both ways, right? There's, you know, if you are, maybe not today, right? But if you are the son of Puff Daddy, right, who used to have a house not far from me, maybe like 20, 30 minutes away in Alpine, New Jersey, and he, if his son was out driving one of their Rolls Royces, let's just say, and got pulled over, and I was out there driving my car, who do you think gets more leniency when they get pulled over? The young black guy or me? I think the young black guy does. I think they pull him and go, "Oh, Mr. Combs, how are you, sir? Yeah, you're going a little too fast back there, blah, blah, blah." And, you know, I think they're enormously courteous. Why? Because they know his dad is a very powerful, influential guy with a whole lot of money. And, you know, that stuff travels, right? Especially when you donate to politicians. And, you know, I'm seeing pictures today of Obama and Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs at one of his parties. So my point is, this stuff always goes both ways. There are people that are going to hire people for the sake of diversity. I've seen job announcements that say preference will be given to candidates of color. Not preference will be given to candidates who have the best resume, who have the most experience on the job, whatever the case is, the best qualifications. No, they're literally willing to pay more money to recruit people of color so that they can say, "Hey, look how diverse our organization is." And that is, in my opinion, wrong. But it's happening. So there are certain people being hired specifically for the color of their skin, which, in my opinion, is racist. And it shouldn't happen. And this mayor, Brandon Scott, who we have a clip of him. I don't know if I'm going to play it here or not. But I think he's wrong in so much as saying that, you know, he was a DEI hire. And he's right that there are some racists out there. We've all seen them. You know, I've had that same criticism about me, irrespective of the fact that radio is a very competitive business, and I came from a very competitive radio market in New York City. Either way, my point is, people are always going to take a pot shot at me and say, "Oh, no, you're only there because you're brown, you're bald, right?" or whatever. You know, trying to make some sort of slight on my accomplishments. So that's a reality of life. There's always going to be a hater out there, and lamentably, we're seeing that unfold. But for the most part, most people aren't haters, Eduardo, and that's the good news. Thanks for tuning in, brother. I appreciate your call. Let me keep it moving here. Paul, Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes,
Happy
sir.
Good Friday.
Amen.
I got to give a huge thanks outpouring of love towards another human being, and that was Trump today doing what he did by going by the wake. I don't think there was a speck of ambivalence in him when he did that, and it wasn't to show up the other three presidents by going there and showing there and making a visit, as it were. I think he really showed his true colors, and he showed his humanity, and he keeps doing that, and Biden keeps on going towards the money.
I think you're right, Paul. Every time, you're right. And even if he was, and this is where, again, I'll say, I try to be objective here. Even if he was doing this for the sake of politics, even if he said, you know what, they're going to go shake hands and kiss babies with Lizzo and some other entertainers in New York City in a fundraiser, I'm going to go do it with the family of this fallen officer. I think he made the better choice. And I don't think he did. I agree with you. I think he did what he thought is right. That's what you do. You go and you pay respects to the family. But they chose not to. They chose to not even attempt to politicize it. Now, some people are going to say, look at Valdez saying that we should be politicizing the deaths of police officers. No, I'm saying you pay respect, whether it's however you do it. As far as I know, the family is not saying that three former presidents tried to come by on their way to the fundraiser in order to, to pay respects to Officer Diller. No, I didn't hear that. So, no, I'm not saying that anybody should be politicizing this man's death. They should not. But what I am saying is that not even for that they tried. And that's shameful. Paul, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Let me see. Where do we go here? Let's, first let me check. Do we have that Vietnam audio? All right. Let us go to Greg in Alexandria, Virginia on KDKA. Go right ahead.
Rich, I'm calling from Alexandria, Virginia. It's out of Washington. I just wanted to remind you and your audience that today, Friday, March 29th, is National Vietnam War Veterans Day. I used to call up your predecessor, Jim Bohannon, because he was a Vietnam veteran. And President Trump signed the proclamation authorizing this day in 2017. Unfortunately, it doesn't get much media attention. I haven't seen much coverage given to it. And I used to work at Henderson Hall, the Marine Corps base in Arlington, and we used to give out things to the veterans for that day. But sadly, it's kind of forgotten, and there's still a lot of those guys around, and I had some of his neighbors who fought and died in the war, and I just wanted to honor their sacrifice by mentioning it on your show tonight.
Well, Greg, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for calling to remind all of us about Vietnam War Veterans Day. And, of course, we thank you for your service and everybody that served, especially those who gave the greatest sacrifice, because that should never be forgotten. And, of course, Jimbo, like you mentioned, Vietnam veteran. So I tip my hat to all of you, and I thank you for that. Godspeed to you, my man, and have a great Easter.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see. We're gonna take a pause here because there's not enough time to squeeze in a call. I don't want to cut you off. The music is there, but we will come back. We'll come back, and we have. Let's see. We're gonna go to Atlanta, New York, Montana, Arkansas, Illinois, Chicago, and Lansing, Michigan. Don't go anywhere, folks. There's more to come straight ahead. I am Rich Valdez, at Rich Valdez with an S on all of the social media. And by the way, Trump's selling a Bible, and people are up in arms. I say, sell whatever you want. Be on the lookout for T-shirts that say Valdez with an S.
Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with Open Phone America. You guys weighing in on everything that's on your mind. Let's swing it down to Fani Willis country. That's right, Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA, and check in with Todd. Todd, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Rich, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to offer a little clarification. I heard an interview with Lee Greenwood, and that Bible was his idea. He's been promoting it for about 3 years. And, he has the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, everything in there. And he did it because those documents were derived from the Bible. And I think it's great that President Trump has endorsed it, but it's my understanding. I don't think President Trump is selling it or trying to make money off it. I think he's just endorsed the idea of it and the need of this, of all of us to, get back to our Bibles. And,
I don't know whether he's making money on it or not, but even if he did, it wouldn't make a difference to me, honestly. It would make no difference. I know that he's got this deal with Lee Greenwood, and I saw the video, and I heard what he had to say about it, and I agreed with everything. I think the fact that, what happens in life is that the media, they will try and paint everything as negatively as they can, in particular with Trump, but typically any Republican they hate. And they'll try and make these people look as bad as they can make them look. And every now and again, their talking points will strike a nerve with otherwise, I'm going to go with the word sane, but I should say reasonable people. And this is why I have friends that I bump into from time and again. And they'll say things to me like, look, I know you like Trump, but he's just too toxic. They'll come up with any story. He's just as old as Biden. I mean, the reality is, Trump is literally not as old, but okay, fair enough. They're close in age. But who really amongst us here can say that Trump and Biden, when it comes to physical prowess, are on the same wavelength in the same category? Nobody, right? Trump is running around his 757, going back and forth all over the place, pulling all-nighters here and there, going everywhere, doing everything, giving speeches, going to court, doing a TV show. He's everywhere. And, promoting the Lee Greenwood Bible, selling sneakers, and doing a campaign fundraiser while visiting a wake. He's doing everything and doesn't break a sweat. Joe Biden is, he's constantly at the beach. He's constantly having ice cream. He's in retirement mode. So I think they're incomparable in that respect when it comes to physical ability, their prowess and whatnot. The other part of it is, sadly, sometimes people with their critiques, it just sticks. And they think, this guy's just, he's no good. He's not whatever. He can't bring the country together. What, is Joe Biden bringing the country together? I mean, I haven't seen the country more divided, honestly. He ran on this premise where he had the guys with the torches that turned out to be staged, trying to make it look like Trump was the one that was dividing the country, when in fact it just wasn't. It was Democrats. So I have a tough time believing that stuff. But you know what? I appreciate it, Todd. And you know what? If what you're saying is accurate, even better. Even better that Trump is just saying, hey, look, buy a Bible, right? It's a Bible that comes with America's founding documents. It's a Bible that God Bless the USA, Lee Greenwood wrote, or not wrote, but has been behind this project. And good on both of them for promoting it. It's Holy Week. How dare you promote the Bible during Holy Week, right? Todd in Atlanta, thanks for your call. Big shout out to WGKA. Let's go. Middle of the country. Diane, Chicago, Illinois, listening on WGN. Go right ahead, Diane. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Thank you, Rich. I always get other ideas listening to the other while I'm on hold, but I'll go to what I had called about the RFK choice of this person named Shanahan.
Yes.
This is if anybody wants independent party or wants even a three-party choice in November, which wouldn't be a bad thing for, liberty and all that, except that this is such a disappointment because if you read about this person, she is, it's very weird. She's got like 2 divorces, and she just married somebody or had a partnership ceremony in a Druid ceremony, some kind of, New Age kind of thing. And then she also has gone to that Burning Man festival. Elon Musk has outright denied that he ever had a love affair with her, but that was a rumor. And she married this Sergey Brin, who was this very super millionaire, the Google guy. That was her second marriage. And so if RFK as a Catholic, and I'm a Protestant, but I'm a Christian, and he as a Catholic, you'd think he would have sort of had an aversion to choosing someone like her. So I wonder what pushed him, and that leads you to that deep state kind of thing where the big money on both Democrat and Republican parties have for decades really run the show and will expect to keep on in the name of their version of patriotism. So we, the people, again, are, so it was, he was making inroads on reaching people, but I guess maybe he's exhausted or something, or he capitulated or something. But this is an odd choice.
Yeah, I think his entire decision to run as an independent was odd. It wasn't like he lost in the primary and then said, all right, I'm coming back and I'm going to run in the general as an independent. He kind of bailed out of the primary without even really putting up much of a fight against a candidate that wasn't even fighting, right? Joe Biden wasn't trying to do anything. Now, whether he would have been incredibly competitive or not remains to be seen. But I don't think he tried. I didn't see not one single campaign commercial trying to get old school Democrats, like a traditional Irish Democrat, to say, hey, look, or anybody, any type of old school Kennedy Democrat would have related to, I think, a message from Bobby Kennedy. But they didn't try. Instead, he stuck with his typical spiel of vaccines and stuff like that, which, again, that's fine if you want to talk about that. But I don't think you make that the premise of your entire campaign when your name's Kennedy. If your name's Kennedy, I think you come in and you say, hey, look, I'm Kennedy, and this party is running away. It's running away with Fidel Castro. It's running away with Stalin. It's running away with Mao and Xi Jinping, and we don't want anything to do with it. We still believe in America, and we disagree with the Republicans on this, that, and the other, and here's the contrast, and this is why I'm running. I'm Bobby Kennedy, reporting for duty. But no, he didn't do it. And now you're right. He picks this woman that some people think she's fantastic. I think, where's the punchline? I just don't see it. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's a lackluster decision, A, to run the campaign the way they're running it, and B, they lost whatever appeal they were going to get from the and check out who our vice president is. I think they lost that too. That whole piece, their ability to shine with that one. Diane, Chicago, Illinois, WGN. Big shout out to everybody listening on WGN. I know you guys listen on a tape delay, so I want to give a big shout out to you and thank you for calling in during the live portion of the show, and of course everybody that's chiming in online. Thank you. We're also all of our friends in Sacramento. I've been getting so many notes from our friends in Sacramento saying that they've changed the timing of the program in Sacramento, and I don't have any control over the decisions that management on each individual station makes. But I can tell you there's a lot of unhappy people that like this national conversation and aren't a part of it right now that are in Sacramento. And all I can tell you is if you want to hear the show during the time that we're live, which is 10 p.m. Eastern to 1 a.m. Eastern, I want to urge you to go to richvaldez.com and click the Listen Live button. You could take the phone with you. The show will be right in your phone. Put it in your pocket. Put on your headphones or whatever. Listen to it in the car. You could do it right off your cell phone. Absolutely free. It's live. richvaldez.com. Just click the Listen Live button. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to connect with our friends in Sacramento. Anyway, folks, we continue with the rest of your calls. Let me see. Where do we go now? Let's go to Joe, Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Joe, go right ahead.
Greetings from Arkanistan, Rich. Hey, the great state of Arkanistan. Listen, about three things here real quick. Number one, you was wondering about why did Biden just jump up there and say we're going to pay for the whole thing? Well, he's pandering to the Northeast crowd for more votes. That's all that is. And number two, on the Bible thing, Trump, I don't say he's pandering or anything, but half the Christian community is going to be aggravated that he done that for $60 to get another version of the Bible. Now, maybe his funds are getting so low, he decided to do that, but he'd have been better off to be advised to pass them out to people that want them, and we'll take donation, love offering, or whatever. And if you can't afford it, we're going to send you one anyway. That'd get him some mileage there. And then on that bridge, we had ferries down here for years across the Twin Lakes, North Fork and Bull Shoals and such. And they was always better safe than sorry. So when they had explosives on board on a semi, LP, gasoline, dynamite, we had to wait, us route drivers, we had to wait and for a whole trip, 30, 40 minutes, and for them to make it. Now, we cussed about it and complained, but you know what? They never had an incident, but if they'd have had, you take 50 cars on there, and more than one per car, you'd have it'd be a terrible incident. But what they did is they invited the driver to get on a tugboat just in case. And like they say, you know, it starts little. We keep an eye on it if there's a fire of any kind. And the rules were that nobody had their car motors running and no smoking. And so you could get out and stretch your legs and stuff. In the summer, it's really hot in the car. But they was strict on all that. But see, if they close that bridge on both ends when that bow is getting so many yards away and then have all the traffic off of it, that would minimize in case of a disaster. I'd like to see them do that. People can have a little patience for that thing to get, you know, through there. And I got a question for you. Was that by chance a Costco ship, China Ocean Shipping?
No, it wasn't. It was something Grace from Singapore. It wasn't Costco, and it was being managed by Maersk, the European company. So I don't know anything else beyond that, but they're still investigating, and we're keeping a close eye on it. Joe in Salem, Arkansas, KSAR, thank you for your call, my brother. Folks, we're going to pause right here. We're going to come right back to your calls in New York, Chicago, Montana, Michigan. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Got to make sure I turn down my music. During the break, I listened to a genre of music called reggaeton, Puerto Rican reggae. Fascinating stuff. Listening to a guy named Jay Wheeler. Great tunes. Anyway, we continue with your calls. 833-4825-337-8334 Valdez. Let us go to Jane in New York on WGDJ. Jane, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Okay, I'll try to make this quick. And first of all, God bless Trump with the Bible thing. I think too many young people aren't embracing God anymore. The lady who was on, Bianca Davis, I admire her for what she is doing. What I'm wondering is, like with the trafficking, Bernie Sanders, when I used to live up north around New Hampshire and Vermont, and Bernie Sanders is such a filthy, and he is total communism all the way. And there were many Oriental restaurants up around that part who would hire young women who had no families, and they would use them for trafficking. And it was a huge thing that was going. And Planned Parenthood up in those areas would be tied in with that, so that if a woman happened to get pregnant, they could take care of it right away. Now, I'm sorry, but those people up there, I would love for people to put out a phone number, if Miss Davis could do that, a phone number for some people to call, because not everybody can, have access to a computer.
Right.
And if they have, because I know I always worked for the 30 years I was in abuse counseling. I would work with local pediatricians and doctors. And
right. And you're saying if there were a resource they could call, that would help. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because there's still a lot of people that don't use the internet. But I think most people who have a phone that has internet on it nowadays, unless you're like a lot older than me. And hopefully they'll find like sex trafficking hotline.org, which is, I think, one of their websites. And the other one was newfriendsnewlife.org. And yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of connections between Planned Parenthood and certain communities, typically minority communities, where they're always more than happy to start collecting their fetal body parts and selling them off. And that's not conspiracy. That's just fact. That's what they do with a lot of these body parts after they conduct these abortions. So it really is just a curious question. Like, why do you promote it so much? Well, maybe because they make money off of the sale of these things. And it's sick to even suggest that, but It is the case. Jane, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Big shout out to New York, WGDJ. And let us continue straight from New York to the middle of the country. Let's go to Lansing, Michigan, WILS 1320, and check in with Maya. Hey, Maya, you're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi there. Thank you so much for letting me in there in your lineup there. I just wanted to piggyback on or say something in addition to the fellow who said that he thought Biden's trying to get votes from that area, because he did get out there quickly and say that it was not a non-terrorist act. And I think that, because they want to win the election, they've got some people on his team that are listening to the other side. And of course, we believe that he's let a lot of terrorists in that mean us harm. So they are going to want to get right out there and denounce anything that has anybody thinking that Biden might have let these people in.
Definitely not terrorism. Absolutely not. Right. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing is that ship. I heard you say a bit ago that it's managed by a European company, but that it's manufactured out of Singapore. And
It's
I was
owned.
wondering
Yeah, the owner is out of Singapore.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I mean, he does kind of pander to the Chinese, but I don't know. I want to say to you that I really appreciate what you're doing for people and their state of mind and their viewpoints on these on the airwaves every night. I really do appreciate it, because I think there are a few people out there that are changing their minds. There's some fence sitters that, their minds could be swayed, and the more they hear of what's really going on, which they're getting more truth from the conservative side and more, fantasy and hyped media against Trump on the liberal side. I think there are people who can be kind of swayed over. I wish that they'd do a biography of Biden and Trump in comparison.
Maybe we'll do one on Monday. If we could put one together, we'll do it on the radio. Maya, thank you for your call. Very kind words, and I appreciate it. Big shout out to you in Lansing, Michigan, WILS 1320. Great station. Thanks for giving us a call. Folks, we come right back to the rest of your calls in the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Jim in Chicago, listening on WGN 720. What do Democrats and math books have in common? Jim, go.
They have problems, Rich. Happy Easter.
I love that. God bless you, brother. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter to you and your family. Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Go right ahead, Frank.
Hi. I want to be quick here. I hear that evidence in history that the first broadcasting station in the United States wasn't in Pittsburgh. It was actually in Stanford.
Right. So here's what happens, right? It's actually in San Jose, California, and it experimented, as they call it, from 1909 to 1921, and it became KCBS in San Jose. What happened, though, in that time frame, KDKA in Pittsburgh got licensed in 1920 as the first commercial radio station, and then they got licensed a year later, even though they had been in operation unlicensed. They got licensed in 1921, KCBS in San Jose. So you're right, it started first, but it wasn't official first. Frank in Evergreen, God bless you. Big shout out to KOFI. And Ken from Lansing, Michigan, I'm going to owe you one. The music means I got to go. Take care, good night, and God bless you. Hasta la próxima. Until the next time, America, I am Rich Valdez.